Hello and welcome to my channel, Word of Mouth English Studio. Now, if you remember one of my other videos that I've made on how is the criteria and band score in IELTS assessed, which you can find the link to in the description here below. You might remember that we talked about all the different types of criteria you might find and be assessed on in your IELTS writing, as well as how many different types of writing task you might get in task 2 of your IELTS paper. Right, so do you remember how many types of essay you might come across in your IELTS task 2 of your writing? That's right, it's not 3, but 5 different types of essay that you might come across. So as an IELTS candidate, you have to be ready. You are expected to be prepared to be able to answer any of those 5 different question types that may come your way. But how to identify them is that's the question, right? How is one different from the other? What makes them different in terms of style, in terms of technique, in terms of efficiency? So let's have a look at that today. In today's video lesson, we're going to be looking at a solution essay in particular. And a solution essay, as we know, is very different from an opinion essay or an agree-disagree essay or a direct question essay. So it requires a different structure and a different way of handling it altogether. So let's go on now to answer a question that would help us in identifying it. So the question here is, how do you identify a solution essay? What does it look like? Because it can oftentimes be intimidating, looking at an exam paper, not knowing what to write, not knowing or not being sure or not being confident enough on the style that you need. So yes, it can be a little bit intimidating at first until you get used to writing more essays. So you might feel a bit like this at the beginning of your IELTS before having done any writing preparation. But let's now move on to some techniques that can help you in your writing a solution essay. Well, you can always identify a solution essay from its question ending. That is how you know what type of essay you're dealing with. Okay, so you might be asked any one of these different types of question endings, and this is how you recognize that it's a solution essay. The first question, I think, is pretty obvious. It's pretty indicative of a solution essay because it contains the word solutions. What solutions can you suggest to deal with this problem? Or the second one does not include the word solutions, but it should still be obvious that this is a solution essay, not an opinion essay. What measures could be taken to prevent this? Okay? Or what can be done to solve the problem? Or how does this affect local communities? So as an IELTS candidate, you're not expected to be an expert or a professor on the subject, but you are, however, expected to have a knowledge on general topics and conversational topics, and you are expected to have read up on an array of different academic topics and different types of English sources. You are expected to know about housing, about industry and the basics of the economy and wealth distribution, or about environmental problems and how to tackle these questions. So here we're talking about understanding global dilemmas. You would have to be able and you would be expected to be able to give solutions to these kinds of problems from what you read, from the sources that you have read or podcasts that you have listened to. So you would also be expected to have general knowledge. And that's what they're testing you on in this part of your writing. They're testing you to see whether your writing abilities do in fact concur with the real world, and can you find technical solutions to each one of these things. You have to be well read on a few of these subjects. Okay, so we've already tackled the first daunting parts of our solution essay. Okay, and yes, it's true that this type of essay can be quite challenging at first, but we're getting used to it and we're looking at what it really involves. Okay, so these are the steps that you would have to take to ensure that you write a good, cohesive essay. Now let's move on to some tips and tricks to help you this type of essay. So questions I often get asked are, what tips can I use to answer this essay type? Well, first off, read the question carefully, always, 2-3 times over, to see what you need in order to give solutions. Is this a solution question or is it both a cause and solution question? You have to ask yourself this question before you've started writing out your essay. Right? You've got to plan your main points, you've got to write down your supporting points, so you should ask your IELTS tutor what the difference is between main points and supporting points, so that you would be able to write a better essay. Okay? Keep your language flexible, avoid repetition, use phrases to do with cause and consequence that your IELTS tutor will help you with throughout your tutorials, right? There are special expressions we use to write these types of essays. Now let's go on to paragraphing. How should you structure your layout? First of all, we know that you need around 4 to 5 maximum paragraphs in this type of essay for part 2. Right, I wouldn't suggest over 5 and I wouldn't suggest anything under 4. Okay, experts always suggest 4 as an ideal structure. Okay, so 4 paragraphs should be just right. Your causes should go in one of those body paragraphs in the middle, whereas your solutions should go in a separate body paragraph. Right, so you've got your introduction, causes, solutions, and your concluding paragraph, which of course should be your strongest point. And try to speak to your IELTS tutor to see if there are any, user-friendly structures that he or she might suggest to you that would make it easier for you to be able to lay out the structure of your essay. Now, remember, keep in mind that you have to write about the causes of the problem in a solution essay. You are expected to do this. You are also expected to propose possible solutions to a problem you're given. Okay, so again, critical thought is and writing, critical writing is what you are being assessed on here, as well as, of course, your technical writing abilities. Okay, so you've got to remember to do both. Failure to write a cause or a possible solution will deduct marks from your overall band score. Desirable. But now let's look at today's question. This is a typical task 2 solution essay question. Let's have a look at it together. Right, so first it tells you to write about the topic given. You should spend about 40 minutes writing. I do not recommend more than 45 minutes on this, okay? So don't spend too long on writing it, because you also have to read your essay again towards the end. You've got to assess what you've written. So leave some time in the end to edit your work. Okay, so 45 or 44 minutes should do just right. Right, so in many large cities, some people waste hours of their time every day because of traffic congestions on the roads. It's uncountable. What do you think are the causes of this, and what solutions can you suggest? These are the 2 questions that make it obvious we're talking about a solution essay here. Give reasons for your answer, without which you wouldn't be able to get the points you need, and give relevant examples from your own knowledge and experience. That's imperative, okay? With a minimum of 250 words, 300, of course, don't pass the 320 mark. So always know your writing styles. Practice your writing essay techniques with your teacher. Okay, so what do you do once you have read your question? What's the next step? The next step is you underline all the key words to guide you in that question, in that essay task. What does that mean? That means you underline words such as large cities, waste hours, traffic congestion, causes, and of course, solutions. These are the most important, what we call key words in your task that would be able to be a reminder for you to include all these necessary points within your essay. Okay, again, failure to include any of these points would result in a deduction of points, of marks. Right, so underline the key words. That's how we start, by telling our students to focus on the question, read it twice or 3 times over. Then identify the answer type. What does this mean? Is it a solution or cause and solution, both, that the question's asking us to provide? Well, in this question, it's obvious they want us to provide both a cause as well as a solution. So you know you've got to include those in your points. Then write out your points, of course. Take a few minutes, maybe 1 or 2 minutes maximum, to write out your main points as well as your supporting points. Ask your IELTS tutor what the difference between these 2 types is, okay? And your tutor should be able to do some exercises with you. Also, topic sentences at the beginning of each paragraph are really important for you to begin with, okay? Those will really gain you points over there. And of course, think of your causes and solutions to this dilemma. These will usually be global dilemmas that are relatively easy to handle. So you don't have to be an expert to answer this question, as you can see. You might already have a few ideas related to this essay question, and you might have already written down a few of those ideas on paper. So I'm now going to give you a total of 10 minutes, perhaps, if you're starting out writing an essay for the first time, and pause this recording to use those 10 minutes to write out your notes. Okay, start by underlining the key words, identify the answer type, write out your points, and write out some causes and solutions for each. You now have about 10 minutes to do this. Pause the recording and write. Okay, so I've given you a few minutes there to think about what your main points and arguments would be. You're not writing the essay at this point, you're just writing out your points. You don't have time to write out, that much detail in a real essay. So you have to start timing yourself. Keep to the limit. Right, so what kind of ideas did you have? What kind of language are you planning to use in the essay? What kind of linking words do you want to use in your essay? Have you thought of any topic sentences you'd like to include? What are your causes and solutions? Right, now we go to the second part of your writing, which is, of course, writing the actual essay. I'm now going to ask you to pause the recording, and you've got about 40 to 45 minutes to write out your entire essay of 250 words minimum. Pause the recording. Right, now welcome back after having written your first essay. This was a solution essay, okay, that we're working on today. How was it? How did you feel? Was it relatively easy? Did you find yourself writing comfortably? Is it the first time you're writing an essay of this type, or have you trained with your IELTS tutor for a few, because that would make you very, very confident. It makes all the difference. What words did you use? How many paragraphs did you use? And now what we're going to do is we're going to compare your own writing today to another IELTS candidate's writing, and we're going to look at this candidate's own answer and compare it to your own. Okay, so this is just a little reminder, guys, that we're almost there. You're halfway through, you've achieved some of the main basics in writing a solution essay here. And now we move on to the candidate's response. Let's take a look at a candidate's sample essay. But before, read the question carefully again to check whether you've left out anything, okay? Make sure you've included all these main points. And now let's go on to the candidate's and here it is. Ready? have 2 minutes to pause the recording and read this candidate's essay and compare it to your own. Pause the recording. Right, now that you've paused the recording to have a look at this candidate's response, how similar or how different was this essay to the one you've just written? Okay, was it considerably different? Was it only slightly different? Okay, or, you know, can you identify some of the things that you've written? Can you sort of see your own kind of style of writing in this candidate's style? Okay, because even style differs from person to person, okay, according to your tutor. So that's why having a tutor is important. Okay, so now, how many of the words you used were similar to the words the candidate used? Linking words, did you use the same ones? Paragraphing, are they the same? Did you use a similar topic sentence to every paragraph? Right, so now let's move on to another question I'd like to ask. What band do you think this candidate scored today? If you had to give a fair score, a fair band, what would that band be? Think about it. Think about why you would have given this candidate that score, yeah? Now let's look at the actual score. The candidate scored a band 7.5 in total for this writing essay. Let's see why. Now, according to the task criteria for writing task 2, which includes these 4 points here, this is why this student got what they got. In terms of task response, the student got the highest band score for this. It was a 9. Okay, this candidate really did very well. The writer fully addressed all the parts of the task and presented a fully developed position in answer to the question using relevant and well-supported ideas. Right, so in other words, this student answered the question and did not leave any one of those criteria out. He or she answered everything there was to answer. Okay. And had good, well-supported ideas, so relevant examples. This is why we say, okay, give examples. Without those, without the relevant experience, you know, your mark would go down considerably. So do include them. In terms of cohesion and cohesiveness, okay, and coherence, this candidate scored an 8, which is very, very high. While information and ideas here were logically sequenced throughout, and paragraphs were used appropriately throughout, and the writer manages all aspects of cohesion very well. In other words, the candidate makes sense, has a certain fluidity in his or her writing, and does not leave the examiner with extra questions, does not leave space for misunderstandings or misinterpretations, because his language or her language is clearly structured and it's just clear to read and understand and to go through, you know, from sequence to sequence. It's important that your work is easy to read from one step to another. In terms of lexical resource and vocabulary, this candidate today scored a 7, okay, which is not the highest, but it's still a very good score, yeah, very acceptable. The writer used a sufficient range of vocabulary that allowed some flexibility and also some precision. Okay, not complete accuracy, not complete precision, but again, communicable throughout. It's less common. The candidate used less common lexical items with some awareness of style and collocation. What does this mean? Relatively speaking, this candidate didn't use simplistic language all throughout. Okay, they didn't use colloquial language only. They used a more technical, formal or academic language is what they are trying to say. In terms of this candidate's grammar range and accuracy, they only scored a 6, and this seems to be the lowest they've scored in this writing text. Why? Because apparently there was a mix of simple and complex sentence forms that were used. So unfortunately, they weren't all cohesive throughout because really they should have used more technical language throughout to answer this type of essay question, which the student didn't, the candidate didn't use it throughout. There are some errors in grammar, but those grammar errors rarely reduce communication. In other words, the grammar mistakes that this candidate has made are not sufficient to impede understanding and communication, or understanding between the candidate and the examiner, which is what you have to do if you want to get a 7.5 or a 7. Very good. So let's have a look at why now this candidate needed to improve their grammar, okay? Because of course that was the lowest they scored. So this candidate needs some more improvement and practice with their grammar. Let's see if we can identify any grammar, punctuation, stylistic and spelling errors in this candidate's essay. I want you to try to do that now. We're going to look at the essay again, and I'm now going to ask you to pause the recording once more and take a few minutes to read the candidate's answer again and find any lexical or grammar or structural or spelling errors and try to correct them and write them down. Okay, so a few minutes of trying to locate the errors. Have you located a few? Let's see, how many have you located? Let's see if you can find as many errors as I can find. Right, so we start from the top. The problem of congested traffic affects many cities around the world today. Very nice topic sentence to start off with. I wouldn't change anything. City streets are sometimes full with traffic jams from early in morning till the middle of night, which means that everyone wastes a lot of time every day. As you can see, there are quite a few grammar errors with this sentence, but it does not impede understanding. Can you find the grammar errors? Okay. From early in the morning to the middle of the night, okay? Which means that everyone wastes, not waste. Everyone wastes a lot of time every day. So why wastes? We have to have a subject-verb agreement, okay? That's why they must work well together. They must be relatable, otherwise it's not grammatically correct. So everyone wastes. Okay, it's taken as singular. Also, full with traffic. Okay, this is a perhaps stylistic error. I don't quite like the way it's written. I perhaps would have restructured the sentence completely if I were the student. And of course, his IELTS tutor or teacher probably helped him or her in the end. Okay, this is a difficult issue and the solutions are not easy answers. Fair enough, very nice. Let's move on to the second paragraph. One of the causes is urbanization has happened. So many cities in the world have become much bigger population. There is a grammar area. Here we go. Much bigger in population is correct. Something is bigger in size, okay? Bigger in population. So the candidate forgot to insert a preposition here. For example, in my home country, China, my grandparents moved from the countryside life to the city to make more money. Okay, pretty clear sentence. To make more money. I don't think I would have changed it so much over there. Okay, there's not much you can change. It is a good thing that people get more money now, but it means more cars and more traffic congestion. Okay, you don't get money. Money doesn't come for free. You either make money or you earn money. Those are the two verbs that could go there. Also, cars cost little money now in China than in the past, so easy to buy for many people. I would restructure this entire sentence because of its structural errors as well as its grammatical errors. Okay, so cars cost considerably less than. Okay, cars are less expensive today. Cars are more affordable today than they were in the past. cars are or have become relatively less expensive to buy, or relatively cheaper to buy. So you can use any one of those words because the writer here used more simplistic language, and that could take off marks. Right, I would also say restructure this whole sentence, because here the writer is clearly translating from either Spanish or French or Italian, okay, from one of the Romance languages, one of the Latin-based languages, because it's a literal translation. It doesn't sound right in English. It's not natural. It does not communicate meaning, okay? Even though it's sort of intelligible, it's badly written, okay? So we don't say in the past so easy to buy. It doesn't make sense. You need the subject again, you need another object, you need a complement, all right? And don't use so before adjectives when writing essays that are more for more technical, okay? Because it's too simplistic, right? So rather, easy, much easier, okay? Use other quantifiers perhaps. Finally, many roads have been built and they are immediately full of cars, so they just mean more cars are built. I see what the point was here, but cars are not built. Cars are manufactured or produced. In this case, the car manufacturing industry is the word we use, so manufactured would be the verb you need to use here. Now we go to the next paragraph. The solution to traffic congestion can be done. For example, in some cities in China and around the world, the government say only a few cars can travel into the city centre. The government says, really, as an entity, a singular entity. This is a good way, but it must have an alternative. There should be an alternative, or there could be an alternative, or I would suggest an alternative. Such as instead of like, so like is a bit too colloquial, but such as would be slightly more formal, such as public transport. So governments, there you go. This candidate started the sentence with so. Don't start a sentence with so if you're writing technical English. Therefore, or I believe, or it is suggested, or it is recommended that governments spend more money in building public transport systems instead of people using. The candidate needed to use the gerund here, using their private cars. So instead of, okay, using, or of people plus ing. Another solution is to have a high tax on gasoline to discourage private cars, but a subsidize on public transport to encourage people to do this way. I would have rewritten this sentence because it is structurally unsound. It could have been written better. Okay, so I would say to discourage private cars, but a subsidy. This is what the candidate wanted to use, a subsidy, not to subsidize. To subsidize is a verb, but he needed or she needed to use a noun here, not a verb. So, but a subsidy on public transport to encourage people to travel this way. Okay, to travel this way, not to do this way. It is another literal translation from either Italian or Spanish, or perhaps even French. Okay, because it's not an English expression, it's a Latin-based language translation. Now your concluding paragraph. In conclusion is a very good way to start. Traffic congestion is getting worse every year because of urbanization. The answer is our governments must improve the public transport systems. Okay, we must improve public transport systems and make it cost little money. Okay, that's very informal, it's very colloquial, we need to make it more technical. So, and make it more cost effective. Okay. So we have an actual alternative to cars. Now, an actual alternative, that's fine. It's semi-formal, but it's definitely not completely formal. So an actual, using the word actual, is actually quite colloquial. I would use something more formal, more structured than that. Okay, so there are other words that this writer could have used, which is why in some areas of the criteria in marking, he or she did not get the highest band possible. And you need to watch out for these areas here of error if you want to get anything between a 7 and an 8. So that's really good. I think we've concluded very much on a good note here. I'm very happy that we've gone through all of these questions. Now you have the basics with which to write a solution essay. Of course, there are more tips and tricks and techniques your IELTS teacher will help you with in writing a solution essay of this kind. But I'll leave you now with some language that was used in today's candidate essay that you might want to consider using in your essays as well, because they're very appropriate and we like people using this kind of language. Okay, so here's a list of that language used. Get subsidized, encourage, and its direct antonym, discourage. Always find antonyms and synonyms for each word and put them into your word building chart on a daily basis. Okay, so thank you very much for watching my video lesson today. If you would like to see more videos, then tune into my channel and subscribe to my channel. Like my video if you found it useful, and don't forget to check out my website at www.womslearnenglish.com, and you can book a private session with me or an IELTS lesson or course or individual session as you wish. And join me next time for more tips and tricks on speaking English.